Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to final events of the Life Amare project. Life Amare, knowing and loving the Natura 2000 marine sites to protect them, is co-funded by the European Union through the LIFE program. The project is coordinated by Federparchi with Triton Research, Lipu and Fundacion Biodiversidad as project partners, and with the support of the co-financing partners Asinara, Arcipelago Toscano e Cinque Terre, ovviamente National Park. Thank you all for joining us today for this important moment, which is both a closing event and an opportunity to look ahead. Today, we will share the main result of the project and then open a broader reflection on the future of Marine Natura 2000 sites and on the conservation challenges that still lie ahead. To open this event, I would like to immediately give the floor to the President of Federparchi, Presidente Luca Santini, buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
Do subito a te la parola per aprire questo importante appuntamento per noi che rappresenta quindi sia diciamo un evento finale del progetto, ma diciamo un momento di riflessione sul futuro dei siti Rete Natura 2000. A te la parola.
Grazie Maria, grazie a tutti. Buongiorno a tutti, benvenuti. Ma come è stato anticipato in modo breve ma esaustivo da Maria, appunto oggi è un giorno importante perché non è soltanto la chiusura, ma è anche un momento in cui iniziano, diciamo, inizia il resoconto di quello che è stato questo progetto, un progetto importante al quale Federparchi ha creduto insieme ai partner, insieme alle aree protette che hanno partecipato. E credo che davvero sia un modello da replicare e da portare avanti proprio come concetto. In realtà è stato un modo per valorizzare quelli che sono i siti Rete Natura 2000, che sono nati circa 30 anni fa, ma che hanno avuto davvero poca rilevanza da un punto di vista istituzionale, diciamo. Io credo invece che i siti di Rete Natura 2000 siano dei siti importanti. Life Amare come progetto ha cercato di coinvolgere attivamente tutti i portatori di interesse del mondo del mare, in questo caso, dai turisti ai residenti, le istituzioni, gli operatori della nautica, i referenti delle attività sportive e ricreative, i pescatori, gli imprenditori, cioè tutti coloro che a vario titolo sono portatori di interesse rispetto a queste aree. E gli obiettivi, diciamo, del progetto erano quelli di sensibilizzare tutti questi utenti del mare sull'esistenza, sulla posizione e sull'importanza dei siti marini della Rete Natura 2000 e all'interno del progetto promuovere anche quelle che sono le buone pratiche che possono essere replicabili anche altrove. Quindi in qualche modo una promozione della cittadinanza attiva. E devo dire che c'è stato un grande movimento all'interno di questo progetto. Ci sono stati anche momenti di comunicazione importante. C'è stato un coinvolgimento del pubblico, un coinvolgimento dei cittadini, un coinvolgimento di tutti coloro che si trovano all'interno dei siti, ma che si trovano anche a dover parlare, gestire anche altrove le aree protette. Abbiamo due parchi nazionali importanti che hanno partecipato e il presidente e il commissario questa mattina poi interverranno anche durante la mattinata. E quindi io dico semplicemente, poi lascio spazio ai lavori, che davvero è stata un'esperienza importante, un'esperienza formativa, un'esperienza anche emozionante, perché devo dire che questo progetto ha agito anche dal punto di vista emozionale, quindi ha toccato anche le corde emotive che doveva toccare. E credo che quando si va a parlare di conservazione, toccare le corde emotive è importante. Naturalmente mantenendo come faro e come obiettivo quella che è la ricerca scientifica. All'interno del progetto è stata fatta anche ricerca scientifica e quindi credo che davvero qui ci siano tutti gli elementi, ci siano stati tutti gli elementi che servono all'interno di un progetto perché davvero possa funzionare e possa portare i risultati, e cioè quello di toccare le corde emotive di tutti coloro che partecipano, perché la natura questo fa, ma nello stesso tempo mantenere come faro e come obiettivo quella che è la base scientifica, tecnico-scientifica, per poter portare avanti quelle azioni che davvero sono azioni che vanno nella direzione giusta e ci portano nella direzione giusta, che è quella della conservazione del nostro ecosistema, perché noi parliamo di tanti ecosistemi che sono secondo me dei sotto-ecosistemi, perché l'ecosistema che ci deve interessare è l'ecosistema terra, e i siti Rete Natura 2000, in modo particolare a mare, sicuramente sono un tassello importante per mantenere vivo in buona salute il nostro ecosistema terra. Quindi grazie davvero a tutti coloro che hanno lavorato, a tutti coloro che hanno portato contributo di idee, a tutti coloro che hanno portato esperienze all'interno di questo progetto, e credo che questa esperienza, che è stata anche una lunga esperienza insieme, ci possa far lavorare ancora insieme, ma ci possa anche far lavorare con altri soggetti, altri partner, dove noi avremo e dovremo avere la possibilità di portare questa grande esperienza fatta in questo progetto. Quindi grazie davvero a tutti, buon lavoro e buona mattinata.
Thank you very much, Presidente, for your words and for support to this project. Before continuing with the program, I would like to take a few minutes to offer some personal and institutional thanks. First of all, I would like to thank all the project partners for the work carried out during these 5 years. Life Amare has been a truly shared journey, built through cooperation, commitment, and the ability to work together on common goals, bringing citizens, stakeholders, and institutions closer to the Marine Natura 2000 network. As Federparchi, we had the opportunity to contribute directly to many of the project actions. All these actions helped us understand something very important. Communication is not a secondary aspect of conservation. It is a central part of it, because people protect that they know, and they care for what they have learned to recognize as valuable. Thank you, guys, to all Italian marine protected area that followed the project and took part in its activities over time. They joined us in many important moments: the sale campaign, the citizen science actions, the scientific events, and the training activities. Their participation made the project real, concrete, and deeply connected to local communities. I would also like to express a very special thanks to our co-financing partners who supported us in scientific dissemination activities, and who believed in the importance of investing in training for guides, in the involvement of stakeholders, and more broadly in the idea that communication and capacity building are essential part of conservation work. For me, one of the strongest messages of Life Amare protecting marine biodiversity is not only about rules or sites, but also about awareness, knowledge, responsibility, and participation. So today, while we are formally closing a project, we are also recognizing a collective effort and hope reinforcing a common commitment for the future. Thank you again, and thank you again to all those who made this possible. Okay, thank you. And now we continue with the first part of the program. I will introduce our speakers one by one, as they represent different experiences and the perspective that have enriched the Life Amare project and the broader discussion on Natura Marina 2000 conservation. I start with Giorgia Gaibani. Hi, Giorgia. I'm very pleased to welcome. Giorgia, you are head of Natura 2000 office at Lipu BirdLife Italy. Giorgia has been involved in several important actions through Life Amare. Looking back, which activity were you most involved in, and what do you think it brought to the project? The floor is yours, Giorgia.
Thank you, Maria. Good morning, everyone. Of the Amare Natura 2000 events that I remember with a great pleasure, there are centrally those organized by Lipu on 21st of May 2024 to celebrate the European Natura 2000 Day. We have organized walks along the beaches and boat trips to tell people and school groups about the biodiversity and beauty of the marine protected areas. During these events, we also explained how to behave in the Marina 2000 sites, what good practices to follow, and why some Natura 2000 sites have rules that must be respected. We carried out 17 events, including 21 Natura 2000 sites, along the coast of 10 Italian regions, from Veneto to Sicily. A total of 544 people attended the events, including residents, tourists, school and university students, authorities, and so on. Lipu volunteers and staff working in Lipu reserves organize each event in collaboration with local stakeholders and institutions. These events also provide an opportunity to connect people with these places and create a sense of belonging, which is very important for the protection of Natura 2000 sites, but in general for the protection of the nature. In Italy, the Marine Natura 2000 network has yet to be completed and contribute to the target of EU biodiversity strategy, which calls for a legal protection of at least 30% of the seas. To contribute to the completion of the Natura 2000 network, Lipu has identified IBAs, importance birds and biodiversity areas for seabirds, in collaboration with BirdLife, and thanks to important research carried out by Jacopo Cecere of ISPRA. But it's not just research that is important, because civil society has often played a key role in the implementation of the European strategies and policies by putting pressure on European national authorities. This is why it is also very important to bring people closer to the Natura 2000 site, explain that they are not just summer recreation areas, and talk about their importance for the biodiversity conservation. During the Natura 2000 events, Lipu attempted to communicate these messages, and by judgment, by enthusiasm of participants, we hope we have succeeded. Thank you.
Thank you, Giorgia. I now welcome Maria Stella Scordo, Communication Manager of Triton Research. Stella, Triton Research has played an important role in the Life Amare project, especially in strengthening the communication dimension of marine conservation and in helping translate scientific and project content in accessible and engaging messages for wider audiences. From your point of view, what has this communication work meant within the project, and what do you think has been its added value? The floor is yours, Stella.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for this introduction. It's really a pleasure to be here today and to share our experience within Life Amare Natura 2000 project. From my point of view, communication in this project has meant much more than simply disseminating information. It has really been about creating a connection between people and the sea, people and the biodiversity, and between people and the value of Natura 2000 marine sites. That was the main idea, the main goal that Triton would like to reach. One of the main challenges we faced was how to translate quite complex scientific and conservation topics into something that could be easily understood but also felt, because in our experience, awareness alone is not enough. People need to feel involved, to feel emotionally connected, if we want them to care and to act and be active part of the change that we want to build. This is why within Action B1 we focus a lot on direct experiences, especially through the sailing campaigns in Italy. That sorry, I'm a little bit emotional.
Yes, there is emotion for all, Stella, but we know how I work in the project. Don't worry.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maria. So, especially through the sailing campaign in Italy and in Spain, bringing communication at sea was very powerful choice. It allows us to meet people in a completely different way, not in a formal setting, but in a shared place where the sea itself become part of the message. We engage sailors, tourists, local communities, and stakeholders. And what we notice is that when people experience these environments directly, the message becomes much stronger. They are not just listening, that they are living what we are trying to explain. And this makes a huge difference in terms of understanding and engagement. Another very important initiative for us was the Triton Cup. Both the Triton Cup that we organized in 2025 and 24, and the second edition that was organized in Toscano in 2025. In this case, sport became a very effective communication tool. Sailing competition naturally attract people, and they create positive and energetic atmosphere. We use this context to integrate environmental messages in a way that felt natural and engaging, not imposed. Through the regattas, through the race, we were able to reach a wider audience and to connect conservation with something that people already love, the sea, sport, and shared experiences. It helped us to build a bridge between environmental awareness and everyday life. At some times, we also work on tools that could extend communication beyond these physical events. One of these is Amare Sea Life, is an app which allows us to create a more continuous and accessible form of engagement. The app, building this app, it was a very big challenge because it was not so simple to translate scientific content in simple words. And the app gives users the possibility to explore marine species and habitat in a simple and intuitive way, whenever we want. And also, it allows people to add some picture that we know that in this moment communication, it cannot work, online communication without images, video, and so on. This is important because it shifts communication with something that happens only during events to something that people can carry with them, explore at their own place, and return to over time. Another aspect that I think has been particularly meaningful is the work we did through photo contests. Initially, they were designed on a communication activity, but they quickly become something more. They become a way to involve people actively, especially young people, students, early career biologists. Through photography, participants were encouraged to observe, to explore, and to tell their own stories about marine biodiversity. We have to say that we launched in 4 years 4 photo contests with more or less 1,000 on photos that we have received. Very, very nice picture. And I want to add that what really made a difference is that this process led to the creation of a small but very engaged community, a group of young people who become genuinely interested in the project in the terms of marine conservation. They didn't just participate, they contribute. They create content, share image, and help us to communicate the beauty and the richness of Natura 2000 marine site in a very authentic and powerful way. I would like to underline, for example, Matteo Ferretti. He won the third podium of the first edition of Life Up and Above the Sea, the photo contest in 2000 that we have launched in 2023. And he wanted to participate on our communication, and he decided to give us for free his own image about the Fratino. And now in the documentary, for example, you can also watch this image. And so I would like to thank Matteo, but I want to thank also Matteo Nocciola, that is a young video maker that has made a very, very nice documentary, and also Francesca, that you can see on Instagram that he would like to share her point of view about Natura 2000 marine sites. So we create an emotional connection with the audience, which is essential if we want to communicate and have a real impact. And we manage also to activate people, not just reaching them, but involving them, encouraging them to participate, to become part of the process. What this project has shown is that marine conservation is not only a scientific technical issue, but is also a cultural and social challenge. And communication is what allows us to bridge this gap, to make people feel that they are part of it and that they can play a role. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stella. Thank you for your speech. I'm now pleased to welcome Victor Gutierrez. Victor, Coordinator of Ecosystem Conservation and Restoration and Fundacion Biodiversidad, the Spanish Ministry for the Ecological Transition. Fundacion Biodiversidad works to support biodiversity protection, ecological restoration, and the implementation of environmental policies through project, partnership, and strategic action in national and European level. Victor, thank you very much for joining us today. From your perspective, what can projects like Life Amare contribute to the broader European effort on marine conservation and ecosystem restoration? Victor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Maria. Good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you all for accompanying us today to the closing event of the Life Amare project. It's a pleasure for me to be there, and thank you again to be there. Well, what is clear for us is that this kind of project could be a very good opportunity for marine conservation on very different topics. I would say, moreover, now that collaboration, at least for good targets at international level, is been very complicated, and there are not many multilateral efforts to do good things in the world. So I think that this kind of project can be of very high interest to implement Natura 2000 objectives, and well, we are happy also to give our effort on this project, basically in many different topics, but I would highlight probably capacity building activities. Well, what we have seen in the last year is that the effective management at the end of marine protected areas depends basically on two different issues, science and participation, because on one side, science permits to the managers basically to take better decisions, and on the other side, involving stakeholders and sea users leads to a stronger consensus, more commitment, and at the end, better results in conservation. So on one side, to improve participation, capacity building plays a crucial role, as we have seen during the last years, by improving not only knowledge, but also awareness, skills, and attitude to the conservation of the marine Natura 2000 sites. And I would like to highlight also why it's so important in Spain. So Spain, I think that has a very great responsibility for the conservation of the marine biological diversity in Europe. Is the greatest the country that has more biodiversity in the marine issues. So with very important habitats such as Posidonia beds, reefs, seamounts, also some important species as Balearic shearwater or sperm whales, for example, in the Mediterranean. So it's very important for us to preserve all these natural values that at the end also preserve our animals. No? So this and all the ecosystem services that they produce. And now, as you may know, Natura 2000 network that I think we haven't mentioned before is the greatest nature protection network in the world. It's not very known in Europe. And in the marine part, it's represented, at least in Spain, in the Spanish Mediterranean, with more than 100 sites covering 4 million hectares, would represent more or less like 15–60% of our Mediterranean waters. And therefore, so we have in Spain, we have tried in the last, I would say, 10–15 years to do a significant effort in trying to know much better what is under our waters. So we have passed from less than 1% of our marine surface till more than 22% now protected under Natura 2000 network, and trying to reach this objective of the 30% by 2030. So, but this is just the very beginning. So the beginning is trying to protect all these areas, but after that comes a very important challenge that is trying to manage, and we need, as we have mentioned before, we need the involvement of the population for it. So to increase the knowledge of this network, we, as part of the ministry, have developed during the last 7 years or so a capacity building program trying to target public administration, enforcement bodies, tourist operators, NGOs. So, and with that, nowadays, more than 6,000 people have been trained, including, and I would like to highlight the activity in the Life Amare project. In the Life Amare project, almost 1,000 people have been benefited from this capacity building program, with more than 40 activities. And with that, we have tried to train in very different topics, such as the governance, environmental legislation, applied management, identification of marine species, environmental education, communication. So a lot of topics that we think that are very important for the conservation of the marine Natura 2000. So with that, I think that we have gained very valuable lessons. We have prepared a guide of good practices for capacity building activities that is at your disposal, or will be in short time at your disposal in the web of the project. But also we have combined this capacity building program with other activities, with a navigation campaign, as Stella mentioned before. In Spain, we have sailed through 25 marine protected areas, reaching a lot of people, but also a citizen science program, because we consider it's very important population to be involved in the research and in the data for the data. And And finally, I would like to highlight also all the efforts that been made through the international cooperation. I think that LifeAmar have enabled collaboration with countries such as Malta, France, Albania, Greece, helping to share knowledge and best practices on many issues, participatory governance, educational tools, communication initiative. And I take the advantage of this opportunity to thank you again, all our collaborators in these countries that has permit that these activities could take place there. So these experiences, I think that have highlighted the importance of working together in marine conservation, and that's been possible also to the LIFE program that supports thousands of environmental projects across Europe, and that is considered to play a very important role in protecting biodiversity. So now that the LIFE program seems to be under discussion, I would say that long life to life, because it's very important, basically and fundamental for many countries such as Spain or Italy, but in general terms in the Mediterranean. So in general terms, I think that this kind of project can serve to improve, to improve the implication of the population for the conservation. I think that we all have to consider that the health of our oceans concern us all. That marine protected areas are an investment in our futures and a safeguard for our own health. So now that LifeAmar finished, I hope that many other projects like this one comes now, and the efforts of international and common collaboration for a better improvement of our ocean conservation can take place, and we are still do a very important job on it. So thank you very much for everything.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you to all our speakers for opening these events with their reflection and institutional contribution. We now move to a second part of the program dedicated to a presentation of the result and action developed within LifeAmar. Diego Mattioli, project manager of the project, beginning this section with Diego from Triton Research, who will present the main result and action of LifeAmar project. Diego, thank you, and the floor is yours.
I will help myself with the presentation. Yes, I share my screen, and I try to be as fast as possible in order to don't bother you much, and let the maximum opportunity to exchange our point of view during the roundtable, which is the key element of today. So, how to present LifeAmar? It's complicated because, as Victor said, we are at the end, but we are emotional because we would like that these initiatives will bring something important for the next future. So what we have done with the project, we try to start with a simple idea behind a complex project. So the idea is that we protect the sea when we truly know it. So we try to put together the knowledge and the competencies of a wide partnership, as you have already understood from the previous presentation. So I jump this slide. To obtain a very important objective and very challenging objective, which is the reducing our human impact on the marine Natura2000 sites by influencing the behavior of up to 6 million of people. So up to 6 million of people is really big, huge number. But this challenge, I think that we are very, very keen to, to win this challenge. And how we do this, how we implement the different strategy of the project, so the different action. Our strategy is based mainly on 4 pillars, which was the raising awareness among the sea users and the promotion of good practice and replicable practices, the involvement of citizens directly through citizen science, and strengthening the communication skills of site manager. If we can summarize somehow, we can use three words: inform, engage, and empower. But start from the beginning. I imagine that all the people that joined this morning know what is Natura 2000 sites, which is the largest coordinated network of protected area in the world. But which is the problem? That more than 30, almost 35 years after its creation, the Natura 2000 network is still widely unknown. For instance, at the beginning of the project, we realized that in Italy and Spain, but I think also in all the other countries of Europe, only a small percentage of citizens know the Natura 2000 network. And so which is the starting point, is to know in the best way the phenomenon. So we start from research implemented in 2020, where confirmed this problem. In particular, the part of the marine sites of the Natura 2000 network is very, very low in the Mediterranean countries, very few percentage, something like 9%. But the other key element that rise from this research and at the beginning of the project was that how to try to engage the people. So share information through social network, public, easy and accessible web map and marine sites, as Stella said, through the web app, and organized promotion initiatives. So somehow combining a big scale media campaign with very effective activities on the ground, on the territories. And this is mainly what we have done. We combined quite a lot of initiatives: training seminar, regatta, as Stella said, web social app, networking, documentary, replication, sending campaign. And all these activities has been made throughout the Mediterranean basin, as you can see from this map. So we engage in the first part, Italy and Spain, but also we try to expand our impact in other areas of the Mediterranean basin. We reach Albania, Malta, Greece, France. So with the idea of create a wide network of awareness raising and engagement of people. What are the expected results for us? First of all, we want to improve the skill of in terms of communication and engaging people of Natura 2000 site managers, increasing their skill and their capability to create appealing campaign to engage people. And in particular, it's important to create synergy, to create coordination between different stakeholders. Now I want to come to the last two slides, which provide very important insights about the concrete results. So at the beginning of our presentation, I said that we have the very challenging ambition to engage 6 million of people. Then now, with more than 4,000 communication and events products, we have obtained to reach more than the double of the original target. So we have reached 12.5 million of people. It's really a big number, but it's certified by a concrete number. And how we have obtained these very important results? Mainly with interaction between field event and media campaign. The documentary production is very, very important, and the app was another key element. So for us, the key takeaway is that the project has proved the quality, the scalability, and the capacity to obtain the results expected. So we have a very good example to give to the end of the manager of the Natura 2000 sites to truly implement their activities through the engagement of the people. So where the impact happens, so the challenge and engagement dynamics. We have two hotspots. On one side, the digital and online campaign, we have made 131 initiatives and products which reach more than 5 million of people and more and in particular, I'm talking just related to one of the key actions, so one action related to the communication because the doubling of the target is made with other activities. So just putting our interest on these two kind of event, digital campaign and on-site event, we are able to reach the minimum target of 6 million. Then, thanks to the outreach, thanks to dissemination, thanks to all the other channels, and thanks to the training, which is another part of the activities, we double the number of people direct engagement. So through the digital and online campaigns, we obtain the maximum reach. So digital channels, which was the main driver of this. And through the on-site event, we achieve the maximum engagement. So through the combination of these two elements, so the digital element and the in-person engagement, we obtain a very broad and meaningful impact thanks to our project. So I'm finished with my presentation. I hope that I have not bothered you too much and let the stage to the other speakers of this morning.
Thank you, Diego. Thank you very much for showing so clear how the project achieved its objectives, and in many respects, even went beyond them. I hope that Matteo is online. Matteo?
Sì.
Yes, okay. I would now like to welcome Matteo Arcenni, Extraordinary Commissioner of National Park of Arcipelago Toscano, one of the co-financer partner of Life Amare. Matteo, benvenuto.
Sì, buongiorno.
Scusami.
Buongiorno a tutti. Scusate
se... Cosa chiediamo oggi? Due cose. Sappiamo che sei appunto sull'isola di Montecristo, quindi uno dei siti Rete Natura 2000. Se vuoi attivare la telecamera, Matteo, perché non ti vediamo.
Sì, non me la fa attivare.
Ah, ok, aspetta che...
Me la devi attivare te.
Francesca, se puoi provare ad attivare la telecamera di Matteo. Matteo, quindi voi avete deciso di cofinanziare questo progetto e ovviamente per noi partner e per Federparchi è stato, diciamo, sicuramente importante il vostro contributo. Cosa vi ha spinto quindi a cofinanziare il progetto e quali sono i risultati, diciamo appunto, che avete anche voi raccolto sul territorio? Magari penso all'azione B3 che vi ha visto particolarmente coinvolti, piuttosto che all'azione di Citizen Science. A te la parola, Matteo.
Sì, buongiorno. Intanto buongiorno a tutti, mi scuso per questo collegamento volante che abbiamo fatto, purtroppo il segnale va e viene qua dall'isola, ma oggi avevamo una visita per vedere come poter migliorare ancora di più la qua e per renderla sempre più un sito unico al mondo e da poter studiare, ma poter anche visitare in maniera naturalmente adeguata. Noi come parco siamo stati onorati di poter partecipare a questo progetto coordinato da Federparchi, amare, e non ci siamo però limitati solo a cofinanziare, ma siamo voluti essere anche un partner attivo, perché finanziare basta ci lascia il tempo che trova, come si suol dire in Toscano. Noi invece vogliamo essere sempre più anche dei partner attivi e portare il nostro valore aggiunto con i nostri tecnici e le nostre professionalità. E nello specifico, con questo progetto che si inserisce nel quadro strategico della Rete Natura 2000, siamo andati a toccare appunto i siti marini che rappresentano degli ecosistemi straordinari che hanno un grandissimo valore, ma che sono purtroppo anche esposti a pressioni e criticità incredibili. E in questo contesto il parco ha inteso favorire delle occasioni di dialogo e confronto con i territori, contribuendo a rendere più efficienti le azioni di comunicazione che dovevano essere appunto svolte. E proprio questo ha portato a registrare l'importanza di lavorare per una comunicazione sempre più attenta e mirata ed efficace, costruendo relazioni sono fondamentali per la riuscita di questi progetti che stiamo sviluppando. Del resto, per noi è fondamentale cercare di creare eh, questa consapevolezza e queste relazioni tra le comunità locali, tra gli operatori economici, fra i pescatori, fra i diportisti, i turisti, tra le scuole, che ciascuno comunque è un interlocutore importante e che richiede linguaggi, strumenti e modalità di coinvolgimento però differenti. Noi abbiamo cercato proprio di mettere tutti in rete, anche perché crediamo che sia necessario, proprio nello spirito di Natura 2000, costruire una coesione importante tra la salvaguardia dell'ambiente e lo sviluppo dei territori. Infatti le riserve Natura 2000 per noi non devono essere delle riserve rigide, statiche, ma devono essere delle aree dove si salvaguardia la natura, ma si ha anche un occhio verso tutto ciò che sta dentro la natura, compreso l'uomo con tutte le sue dinamiche, le dinamiche economiche, sociali, culturali e le particolarità poi di ogni singolo luogo, perché ogni luogo è diverso. Noi abbiamo anche la fortuna di poter aver attivato vari progetti che riguardano l'isola di Gorgona con le sue caratteristiche di carcere ancora attivo, con l'isola di Capraia, che è un ex carcere e che ora che è stato chiuso e che deve essere pertanto recuperato. Poi abbiamo tutto ciò che riguarda l'isola di Pianosa, che è un ibrido tra un carcere non ancora del tutto chiuso e una struttura comunque di un laboratorio di studio dell'ambiente, dove appunto si è potuto fare anche, si sta continuando a fare anche della sperimentazione agricola, essendo stata la più grande colonia penale agricola europea. E poi andiamo all'isola d'Elba, che invece è un'isola che è vissuta in maniera stabile dagli uomini. Abbiamo cercato pertanto di mettere insieme il tutto, riconoscendo l'importanza del valore dell'uomo e della presenza dell'uomo, ma l'ancora più importante salvaguardia della natura che ci sta intorno, perché è fondamentale. Pertanto l'obiettivo che dobbiamo continuare, a nostro avviso, a perseguire è chiaro: rendere questi luoghi non solo protetti, ma anche riconosciuti, compresi e rispettati. E questo è possibile solo attraverso un impegno condiviso e una comunicazione sempre più inclusiva, efficace e orientata all'azione. Io con questo vi ringrazio e mi scuso ancora per questa brevità e per questo collegamento così molto leggero, ma purtroppo l'ambiente in cui mi trovo sicuramente è bellissimo, ma
È
non
in
è
linea con il
molto
progetto,
congeniale.
Matteo. È
Sì,
in
sì, è in
linea con
linea
il
con il
progetto.
progetto. Però questo dimostra poi la
Presidente sul
difficoltà
campo
anche
abbiamo.
un commissario sul
Un
campo
commissario, scusami.
con una sola tacca di telefono che ogni tanto salta.
Grazie, grazie
Vi
mille
aspettiamo
Matteo per
tutti
la
all'Elba
disponibilità
e scusate
soprattutto.
ancora per l'intervento molto breve.
Assolutamente, assolutamente. Hai colto lo spirito
Grazie
di
ancora
questo evento finale. Grazie
e
mille,
grazie a
davvero.
Federparchi per tutto l'impegno che sta mettendo.
Grazie Matteo. Thank you very much to all the speakers for this contribution. Before moving to the roundtable, we will now watch a short video from the project documentary, Unseen Guardians, Roots for the Biodiversity, which was one of the project deliverables, and it's also included in the agenda of today. This short visual moment is important, very important for us, because it helps us reconnect the project technical and institutional dimension with its deeper meaning. The sea is not only a space to project, but also a space to know, to experience, and to respect. Communication, storytelling, and visual tools have been central in Life Amare project, precisely because conservation also needs emotional connection, public awareness, and participation. I don't know, I think it's Gianni. Okay, we watched this video together. It is about 5 minutes long. Thank you, Gianni. I think there is some problem.
Yes, while Gianni is working to share the video, we can say that is a shortcut from the documentary. The documentary, you can find it in YouTube. There are 3 documentaries with 3 different languages, one in English, and one in Italian, and one in Spanish. It's the same documentary, but in 3 different versions.
Stella, do you have a link?
About the documentary, yes, of course. I can share with you on the chat. So I will share the first one in English, and then also the other link.
Okay, thank you, Stella. Gianni, if you are ready, we can start with see this short video. Otherwise, we start with the roundtable. Okay, I think it's better now start with the final part of the program, a roundtable of future of the Marine Natura 2000 network and its conservation challenges. Okay, thank you, Antonio. And I asked the other speakers to open the camera and the microphone. Before introduction, our speakers, I would just like to say that we wanted the final events not only to present the result of Life Amare, but also to create a moment to look ahead. This roundtable is important because it connects what the project has achieved with the challenges that still lie ahead. Marine Natura 2000 conservation needs different perspectives to work well: research, management, restoration, communication, public engagement, and cooperation. So after looking at the project result, we now want to reflect together on what is still needed to improve the management and conservation of these sites. For these reasons, we will ask each speaker 2 questions so that together we can build a broader picture of both challenges and opportunity. I start, I present all the speakers now. Jacopo Cecere, researcher of ISPRA, Italian Institute of Environmental Protection and Research. Antonio Vulcano, Senior Marine Officer, BirdLife European and Central Asia. Matthew Meadow, you can open and open your microphone if you want. Matthew Medori, MEDPAN, Mediterranean Network of Marine Protected Area. Linda Albonetti, marine biologist, CESTA, Experimental Center for Habitat Protection. Afroditi Cardamaki, Associate Scientific Project Manager, Hellenic Center for Marine Research. Okay, we start with Jacopo Cecere. Jacopo, the first question is, how can research help to identify Natura 2000 sites and what methods are available to do so?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me in these events. Well, research can really help identify Natura 2000 sites. Scientific research with proper methods and analysis can strengthen the data coming from observation, for instance. An example, with observation, we can understand which area a species use the most. But if we use telemetry methods like GPS devices placed on the back of birds, we can discover other areas used by the species. Observations depend on where observers, where in the case of birds, where ornithologists in general, when researchers are present, but GPS data don't. So we can identify key areas used by the species in a much more robust way. On top of that, we can apply analysis methods to GPS data, of course, that clearly show which area are used the most, and also for different activities like breeding, foraging, feeding, migrating. Let me give you an example that I have with the Kentish plovers. Some years ago, we tagged some Kentish plovers. It's a small water birds that breed on the beaches, and we tagged some birds with GPS devices. We were around the Venice Lagoon, and I was collaborating with some local researchers with very good experience on the species. And I remember that just after tagging a few birds, I asked them, do you have an idea on where these birds will go to forage, to find food during the incubation, during the breeding period? And they said, sure, we know that because all birds are ringed with a color ring, with a code, so we know where each bird go. And we know that generally they stay no more than 1 kilometer from the nest. So we put the GPS. In that case, we had to retrieve the GPS to obtain the data. So we retrieve the birds, we plug in the GPS to the devices, and we saw that, sure, they went to forage at 1 kilometer from the nest, but they also use another area which was more than 10 kilometers far from the nest, in the middle of the lagoon. But this data, with this information, were no, because nobody was there observing these birds. The case of the Alpine chough. The Alpine chough is a black crown bird inhabiting the mountains. Well, the example of the Alpine chough is quite the opposite from the one of Kentish plover. The species is easy to see in the mountains, near huts, near villages, and we know that Alpine chough nests and roosts on rock cliff. But often we don't know exactly where, in which cliffs they breed or they roost. And last week I tagged some individuals in the Alps, and now we know where the roost sites are. In this case, the GPS sent me directly the position via SMS. So I know where they are every day. And now we know where the roost sites are. This means that the park, the Natura 2000 sites, can identify which cliffs need specific management, for example, regulating climbing activity. These are some examples of how the research activity can help the identification of Natura 2000 sites. You are muted.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Jacopo. Thank you. Now we move to Antonio Vulcano. Antonio, welcome. The first question is, what are the main challenges to improve the management and status of Marine Natura 2000 network?
Hi, Maria. Thanks
Hi,
a lot
Antonio.
for having me. Just double checking that you can hear me okay. Well, yes. So yeah, I think when we're thinking about the main challenges and barriers, they are just not ecological, obviously. They're also institutional, economic, and political. And so we can somehow summarize that the progress depends on better science, but also stronger governance and adequate funding. So I will try maybe to focus on some of those, and obviously like others after me, maybe they can complement a bit. So obviously linking also to what Jacopo was saying, I mean, at sea, the reality it's still lagging a bit beyond compared to a terrestrial environment when it comes to knowledge and data. So we do have still, despite a massive effort, in particular in the last 2 decades, of getting way more better data thanks to refined technology. We are definitely increasing our knowledge at sea as well, but still we do have many data gap. And many marine sites also, they lack detailed and up-to-date data on species, habitats, and ecological processes, for example. And when it comes even to offshore areas and deep sea areas, it's even more difficult and more expensive to actually have research in place. So this is still an important gap to fill in and a challenge. Also, we do know that when it comes to management plans, sometimes, well, in many cases, actually, in the marine realm, is the case that they're either weak or incomplete. So not all sites do have clear enforceable management plans, and when the plans they exist, they don't really they're often maybe too generic, or they lack measurable conservation objectives. So this is also something to keep in mind. When it comes to enforcement and compliance as well, so the good thing is that, like in the EU in particular, we do have like good regulation actually, but obviously, as we know, like the implementation and the enforcement is quite weak. So regulation are not usually adequately enforced, and so we do have illegal or unregulated activities still happening within protected areas, such as the ones of Natura 2000 areas. So that's also is something to look at. I will also like to touch maybe a bit on the governance, which can look like a bit fragmented. Because marine management involves multiple authorities, so at the local, at the national, at the EU level, and that could lead a bit to some coordination problems. So the cross-border sites, they are still challenging because obviously they do need a lot of collaboration, and sometimes this is not always easy to implement. Funding is also still limited, as I was saying, and resources as well. It's way more difficult. It's a tough environment still to do research at. And then obviously we have the challenge of climate change. So obviously everyone possibly here in the panel and in the public knows or have heard about like warming seas, ocean acidification, species shifts, invasive species entering, in particular the Mediterranean in this case, and these can really undermine conservation goals, these climate-driven changes. And it's a big challenge also because obviously we have this network now identified, but obviously how the ecosystem and the species will use this network will change in a few decades' time. So we really need to also think about a more dynamic way of management of the ocean side, which is a big challenge, obviously. And maybe to conclude a bit, also we need a network that is ecologically well connected and coherent. Because it's important that we just not have patches of Natura 2000 sites in the sea, but like that they are well linked ecologically. It does make sense because I mean species they use corridors and they are wide-ranging species. So if we want really to protect them, we need a coherent network. And maybe like also linking to the comms aspect, obviously it's very important still to make the stronger link. I agree with the emotional connection and with the full understand from the general public that these areas, they can be used by the general public as well, with some restrictions, obviously, depending on the characteristics of the areas, and people can really benefit and learn from the wonders of those areas.
Thank you, Antonio. I move now to Matthew Medori. Matthew, thank you very much for being here today. The first question is, in your opinion, what are the main challenges to improve the management and status of Marine Natura 2000 network?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Just to give you a quick overview of the protection in the Med, in 2025, a bit less than 9% of the Mediterranean Sea is covered by MPAs, and Marine Natura 2000 sites cover 3.9% of this sea. But yeah, now behind this number, we try to understand at MedPan what are the challenges MPA managers are facing on the ground, on the field, and what the means and resources are at their disposal to tackle these challenges. So in order to do this, we surveyed and collected answers from 263 MPAs in the Mediterranean Sea, including 134 Marine Natura 2000 sites. And so I will give you the insights provided by this survey. So to assess management effectiveness, we can start with a simple but powerful indicator, which is the manager's perception of objectives achievement. And here the picture is quite clear. To the question, what is the achievement of MPA's main objectives? Nearly 9 out of 10 sites consider that their objectives are not fully achieved. So this doesn't mean that those MPAs are not efficient, because sometimes you will achieve your objectives and then you will set new objectives. So management is adaptive and the objectives evolve as you attain them. But it's the first assessment of effectiveness. And then to go further, we identified 12 enabling conditions derived from scientific literature that can allow an MPA to achieve its objective and to be efficient. And our survey allows us to get a general overview of those enabling conditions. So for Marine Natura 2000 sites, we saw that they reported significantly lower scores than MPAs with a national statute for 5 out of 10 of those enabling conditions. And the biggest differences were found for protection levels, the presence of scientifically based indicators, and monitoring. So those are 3 very important enabling conditions for efficiency. And for those, Marine Natura 2000 sites are doing a bit worse, let's say, than MPA with a national statute. And yeah, our survey also shows some gaps for the management and governance of those sites. For example, so among our sample of 134 Marine Natura 2000 sites, almost 90% of them have no or insufficient staff to manage the MPA. Half of them have no or insufficient equipment, and 40% have an inexistent or insufficient budget. So Antonio pointed a bit at those challenges, but yeah, without people, funding, and equipment, it's hard to go from like management cannot really go beyond intentions on paper. So after that, we looked at the actions taking place in those sites. We saw that almost 2/3 of our sample have no or insufficient monitoring. Half of them have no or insufficient communication activities, and less than 10% reported having sufficient surveillance. So this is also something that will directly affect the ability to enforce the regulation and to ensure protection. If you don't have surveillance, it's hard to ensure protection. And if you don't have monitoring, you simply don't know if management works. On governance, it's a bit more optimistic. For example, we saw that the majority of the sites reported involving the local stakeholders, but most of them do it through the process of consultation. Only 20% have co-management. So there is a participation of local stakeholders, but it often remains more consultative than truly collaborative. And then to finish on this, we also studied other factors that are more structural of the MPA, like size, age. And one of the most interesting finding relates to management units. So in the Mediterranean context, the management unit is the authority or the organization that is responsible for the day-to-day management of one or several MPAs. And we try to study management effectiveness through the lens of a management unit. It's something that was a bit lacking in scientific literature. And we confirm our hypothesis that management unit who oversees a lot of MPAs tend to have less efficient MPAs than a management unit who only oversee one or two MPAs. So the more MPAs managed, the less effective those MPAs tend to be. So this suggests some kind of dilution of capacity where managers and resources are spread across too many sites. And for Marine Natura 2000 site, their management units, on average, they oversee more MPAs than the management units of MPAs with a national statute. So this is also one of the challenge for Marine Natura 2000 site. So to summarize, the challenges are not only about increasing protection, but they relate also to insufficient human and financial resources, sometimes a lack of operational capacity and enforcement, a limited use of science-based management, and also structural constraints in governance and management. So now the challenge is to move from designation to effective management, and it will require not only local efforts, but also stronger political and financial support at both national and European levels.
Thank you, Matthew. Now I invite Linda Albonetti. Hi, Linda. The question is, how can the activities of a Marine Turtle Rescue and Rehabilitation Center contribute to the conservation and management objective of Natura 2000 network? The floor is yours, Linda.
Thank you very much. Good morning, all. I'm a marine biologist and a PhD student working at Cesta, that is a rescue center based in Emilia-Romagna region and is also a research center. In particular, is based in the old fish market of Marina di Ravenna, and it works from 2014 in many marine projects, focusing on protected species. So a center like Cesta can play a really important role in supporting the conservation goals of Natura 2000 network. First of all, Natura 2000 network for the marine protected areas has the goals also to protect species. In particular, we work a lot for the loggerhead sea turtle, Caretta caretta species. And one of the main problems of these species in the Adriatic Sea is the accidental capture in fishes activities, especially in troll fisheries in the North Adriatic. So is where the center becomes really important, because it contributes a lot in rescue and rehabilitate these bycatched animals. So when the fishermen catch the turtle, the animal is often injured or stressed, and sometimes even closer to drowning. So if the turtle is brought to a rescue center like Cesta, can be medical checked and recovered. If instead is discarded in the sea, obviously we cannot doing this work. So we directly contribute in Natura 2000 objective, because these activities reduce mortality of a protected species and helps also maintaining a good conservation status. Another important aspect is the collaboration with the fishermen. The center works closely with them And we encourage them to report capture, to bring turtle to the facility. And this activity creates a positive relationship between conservation and fishing activities, which is exactly the kind of integrated management proposed by Natura 2000. Then there is also the role of the center in testing and promoting mitigation measures, like the turtle excluder devices, usually called TEDs. And by testing this device, the center contributes to reducing bycatch, providing scientific data, and promoting more sustainable fishing practice. And so this is very important because it shows that conservation and economic activities can coexist. Another contribution is also obviously data collection. Every turtle that's arrived at the center provides useful information about threats, health condition, human impacts. And this data can support the management of Natura 2000 sites. We also each year apply several GPS instruments on sea turtle. And these activities is really useful to identify the most important areas of aggregation of these protected species. That is also useful for the management of Natura 2000 sites. So to conclude, an overall center like Cesta, that is not the only one in Italy, fortunately, contributes throughout several activities, and all of this activity makes a kind of link between conservation, science, and human activities.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. And now he's arrived Aphrodite Cardamaki. Hi, Aphrodite.
Hi, good morning from me as well.
The question is, what are the solutions, the action we can implement it to face challenges on management of Natura 2000 sites?
The issue and challenges have already been laid out by Matthew, Antonio, Linda, and Jacopo. These actions we need, and the actions that we need to implement to address those issues and challenges, they're pretty straightforward based on what has been heard so far. But the issue is how exactly do we do this? And that varies, depends on the area of interest that we have, since a major role plays the political will in many cases. And in some of the pieces of the puzzle is more important than in others. So to start off, we need to designate management plan, which in the case of Greece is we still lack. So that's the first step to go through. And I know that in many cases that also happens in other Mediterranean countries, that we don't have designated management plans. So that's a priority. First to designate and then to actively manage the Natura 2000 sites. And then slowly move into the adaptive management of them, which is extremely important. We know that only 23% of the Mediterranean MPAs, they are fully or partly implementing management plans. And this is considered under an optimistic bias, as Matthew also presented in a networking activity. And thank you for that. So that means that basically that number is even lower, because the people that they replied, they were half of the MPAs. So less than 23% basically of the MPAs, they're implementing management plans at some level. So we need to move from paper parks to operational management plans in the Natura 2000 sites. And in order to be able to implement these plans, we need staff, we need personnel. Personnel that they have the capacity, or at least the capacity at some level, to bring these plans to life. Therefore, we need qualified personnel that are able to monitor the sites at least at some extent, apply the conservation measures and evaluate the effectiveness of the measures that they provide, and in order to achieve in the end the conservation objectives that have been set. A lot of issues have arose concerning the monitoring that we use and how efficient it is and how the equipment we have is enough. Nowadays, we need to somehow go into a different direction. We have new tools and knowledge that is built on different kinds of monitoring systems. Therefore, we can build monitoring systems that they are cheaper now, they're simple, they are more autonomous. And across Europe, we have so many projects that are happening right now that they are developing innovative tools and implement innovative solutions in different fields, not only in the marine environment. And we could leverage this knowledge in general. We do not need to monitor everything at all times. Maybe the best case is to set some core set of indicators and which will link to management decisions and have those indicators be monitored in a regular basis and have extensive monitoring schemes in a certain time intervals that will give us a lot of information and data that we need. Another issue that has been brought up, of course, is underfunding. And in many cases, it's not on our hands to change this. That has to do with political will. But in other aspects, we can do something about it. And we can start looking at Natura 2000 sites and the funding of those in a different way compared to what we do so far. I don't like saying this, but maybe we need to start looking a little bit on how we approach and respond to its management plan like a business plan. And in the sense of business plan, what I mean is mostly estimate what are the real management costs, identify the gaps that we have in funding, what other ways of revenue can we have. In many places around the globe, especially in archipelagos with islands, they use different revenues. They have diving permits that they increase the money, the influx of money that then they allocate a certain percentage to the management of the protected areas, or they have tourism taxes. We could also explore different public funds and revenue through public funds and EU funds. And I left it for last, and it's something that Victor also pointed out, and Matthew. And it's extremely important, and it goes hand in hand with the actual designation and the designation of the management plan, and that has to do with the participatory processes, which they need to start at the beginning, from day one, from the development of the management plans, and then their execution. But we need to include the different stakeholders into that process. It could be that the best response is to have as Matthew said, a co-management board for every site or for cluster of sites. It doesn't have to be every site necessarily. Some of the sites, they share the same characteristics, so maybe they could be grouped in that sense instead of a geographic difference that we do now, because that's what we do. But we cluster them in a different way. And in that co-management board, we incorporate and we bring in the different stakeholders, including MPA managers, the representatives from the fisheries, local authorities, civil society, the Coastal Guard, different users and operators in the tourism sector, the scientists. We bring everybody together, and since the beginning. And the thing is that bringing together and having involved stakeholders that they live and they function, they gain financially from every side is the best way forward, because, and including them also since the beginning, it reduces a lot of conflict because you solve all of the issues before you go into the execution of the management plan. So you reduce conflict before it even starts. And we have examples, one example specifically in Greece on an MPA that we started this way, and it goes very well. So having reduced conflict and bring everybody together, it helps turn site rules into something that it's enforceable in practice.
Thank you. Thank you, Aphrodite. Okay, thank you all. We have now completed the first round of reflection on methods, challenges, and possible solutions. I would now like to deepen this perspective with the second round of questions so that we can better connect science, management, politics, and engagement international cooperation. Jacopo, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, okay. You mentioned bird telemetry to identify key conservation areas for birds. Could birds telemetry also be used to assess the effectiveness of the European Union network for protected area?
Sure. Before I made some example with the terrestrial birds, I fully agree with Antonio that the situation at sea is even more complicated. So now I'm going to make an example with the sea, with seabirds. In a PhD project, we ask researchers and conservationists working on the Scopoli shearwater. The Scopoli shearwater is a truly pelagic bird. This bird nests on small islands, only in the Mediterranean Sea, and feeds to look for food, forage in the open sea. So they breed on islands and they forage in the open sea. And within the framework of a PhD project, we ask all the researchers working on this species and using GPS to share their data with us. And the goal was to evaluate how effective the network of protected areas is in protecting the key conservation area for the species across its breeding stage. We defined key conservation areas as all the breeding sites, of course, but also the marine areas most used by the species during the foraging trips, in particularly during the chick rearing period when they must find food for themselves and for their chick. So it's a very critical period for birds in general. We managed to identify these most used marine areas thanks to the use of GPS. And then, so after we mapped this area, we overlapped them with a protected areas network that we have in Europe at sea. And we found that only the 54% of this area fall within protected areas, including, of course, Natura 2000 sites. And then we look at whether the fishing effort is different between the most marine used area that are inside and outside the protected areas. And we found that fishing, we can say in general that fishing is a major threat for the species because it creates a competition from the same resources for fish and shrimps, but also expose birds to the risk of bycatch. And our results show that during the chick rearing period, so this critical period for birds, fishing activity is actually higher in the most used areas that are located inside the protected areas. So basically, the fishing activity is not managed during the chick rearing period, which is in July, August, and September. So the fishing activity is not managed within the protected areas and is higher within protected areas than outside. So we can say that inside protected areas, the risk of bycatch for these birds is higher during the chick rearing period, and that there is also more competition with the humans for fishes and shrimps. This shows clearly how bird telemetry can provide strong evidence about the effectiveness of a EU network of protected areas and Natura 2000 more specifically.
Thank you, Jacopo. Antonio, the second question is how can the Natura restoration regulation help address these challenges?
Sure. As I was mentioning, like in the EU, we are quite lucky to have a strong legislation in place, or at least on paper. And obviously, the nature restoration regulation, it's a very important example, despite the difficult political scenario we are in at the moment. And I think this regulation really is somehow designed to tackle some of the weaknesses that we were mentioning of the Natura 2000 network by really shifting the focus from the designation aspect to really active restoration and measurable outcomes. So obviously it can help to close the data gaps through monitoring obligations, because the regulation asks the member states to assess ecosystem condition, to track progress using standardized indicators. So this also could really help in really closing and filling in the knowledge gaps when it comes to data in a scientifically proven method. Obviously, again, like it allows somehow to go from the so-called paper plans to measurable targets. So because it does introduce legally binding restoration targets, so we need to restore a given percentage of degraded habitats by a set deadline in this case. So this could really help triggering the management to become more concrete and more somehow time bounding as well, and results oriented. Then also obviously can also offer stronger accountability and enforcement, because the countries in theory they must report progress regularly to the EU. So this can increase the transparency. And obviously, I mean, it offers already also a possibility of stronger integration with economic sectors, because the regulation somehow promotes integrating the restoration efforts into fisheries, into marine spatial planning, into offshore energy policies. So somehow it really try to encourage more win-win solution. So for example, I don't know, if we restore a habitat, a given habitat, that also could support fish stocks that can benefit fisheries in this case. It also gets into the direction of better governance and coordination, because it requires the member states again to have national restoration plans. Now are in the drafting process at the moment, and it can also encourage cross-border cooperation for the shared marine regions in some cases. Well, in theory, by setting these binding obligation, the regulation at least creates a stronger case for EU and national funding allocation. So in mobilizing more funding, it hasn't been successful so far that much, but that is the hope basically. And also again, it can help addressing climate change impacts, because examples of habitat restoration like the sea meadow, the seagrass meadow, like Posidonia, the reefs, the salt marshes, all the habitats that need to be restored, obviously they contribute to enhance carbon storage and climate resilience. So it's a great opportunity. And again, because I mean, we have to, the member states, they need to have like plans, national plans. These plans, they also need to consider the social and economic aspects. So these encourage like a early consultation with the fishers, with the community, with the local stakeholders, which is key, as Aphrodite was mentioning before. So these can help really improve acceptance and compliance. And to conclude, I think also, the large-scale restoration projects that can be carried out through this regulation help also reconnected habitats that are more fragmented, improving the coherence of the Natura 2000 network and the ecological connectivity, which I think is a key point. Basically, I think it can strengthen, to conclude, the Natura 2000 network by turning it in, how can we say, more like performance-driven system with these binding targets, better monitoring, in theory clearer accountability for the member states, while also obviously addressing the broader environmental pressures that are coming, like climate change. So I think we really should look into that. And also we need to remind ourselves that, like in theory, according to the regulation, the focus should be primarily on Natura 2000 sites and on protected sites. So this is a great chance actually to put in place better monitoring of those sites and better knowledge.
Thank you, Antonio. Now we'll move to Matthew. Matthew, the question is, how can Mediterranean managers networks help address these challenges?
Yes, so maybe I will start by a short story, a conservation story. In November, we organized a formation of in Spain about marine restoration, and we gathered a lot of MPA managers in the same place. And during an exercise in the room, we had 3 MPA managers talking and sharing pictures about the same individual of monk seal that visited their 3 different MPAs in 2 different countries, and this was like the monk seal was visiting them in a period of a few years, and it was the same individual in 3 different MPAs in 2 different countries. And for me, this story was really like a proof that working as a network is a good solution, because the ecosystems, the species, they don't see the borders of the MPAs or the borders of the countries. They are all the ecosystem are connected, so our answer must also be connected. One of the key findings in our survey was also that a big part of the pressures MPAs are facing are outside of the scope of direct governance by managers. So our panelists were talking about pollution, climate change, invasive species. All those pressures require integrating approaches and regional collaboration, because they are not they're outside of the scope of just the manager. So this means that even a well-managed MPA can struggle to achieve its objectives if those broader pressures are not addressed collectively. So I can give you a few numbers if you want. I know I gave a lot of numbers today, but just among the marine Natura 2000 sites, 80% reported pressure from pollution. Climate change is a management priority for 30% of them, and 90% reported pressure from invasive species. So this showed that those pressures are really like basically concerning every MPA in the Med, more or less. And this is where networks of managers become essential. They provide a platform to move from isolated management to coordinated action. So one of the key contribution of networks like MedPan is capacity building. We organize trainings, webinars, where managers can strengthen their skills and key topics such as governance, climate adaptation, or nature restoration. And this addresses some of the gaps we identified, for example, the lack of scientific indicators or monitoring capacity. And networks can also play a big role in making knowledge accessible. So instead of inventing new solutions and reinventing the wheel every time, managers can just rely on existing tools and tested approaches, because they often face the same challenges. And so the networks allow them to learn from each other, to share solutions, and to avoid common mistakes. We showed also during all those presentations that one of the key challenges is access to funding, and networks can play a role in helping MPAs to access funding opportunities also. And this is particularly important for Natura 2000 sites that often operate on limited resources. And maybe last thing, I would say that networks, beyond technical support, they allow MPA to, like, they give visibility on a collective voice to MPA managers. So for example, MedPan, we are not just a support structure, but we will share stories about successful conservation stories, like good example of practice. And it's some kind of catalyst for more effective and resilient marine conservation.
Thank you, Matthew. The role of managers network is indeed crucial, especially when we want to stronger exchange capacity and practical cooperation across country and sites. Linda, how can citizen involvement contribute to better management of Natura 2000 sites?
Thank you very much. Citizen involvement is extremely important for improving the Natura 2000 management sites, because the conservation works much better, I think, when local communities are actively engaged. A good example of this work is what we are doing at the center, the Cesta Center. And one of the main tools is environmental education and awareness activities. For example, guided visit to the center allow people to see marine turtle, especially caretta specimen, and understand the threats they are facing. This kind of experience is very effective because people are more likely to care, I think, about something than when they see it closely. And another very important activities is the release of rehabilitated turtle. These type of events are emotional and engaging, and they attract a lot of people. And for example, in summer 2022, a released event was organized together with Lipu during the Natura 2000 Day of that year. And events like this raise awareness, show concrete results of conservation, and create a strong connection between people and nature. Another important example is the sea turtle nest in Punta Marina in summertime 2025. This nest was the first nest of sea turtle seen in Ravenna. And this event involved more than 1,000 of volunteers. And when citizens are actively participating in monitoring and protecting the nest, is the kind of involvement that is really increase the capacity to manage the site of the nest, obviously, and helps collect the data. And also, obviously, it increases the community awareness and that feels responsible conservation. In addition, social networks like Instagram, Facebook represent an increasingly important tool for communication and awareness raising. And a significant example of this was the unique and rare site of monk seal. Also, Matthew talked about monk seal, but also here in Marina di Ravenna in Emilia-Romagna region, we saw the first monk seal of this part of Italy. And in particular was seen in Bevano river mouth and in the port of Marina di Ravenna. And the rapid dissemination of this event, of this news throughout social media, helped reach a very wide audience, raising public interest and awareness about these critical endangered species. And this event is currently the subject of a scientific article being developed by Cesta Research in collaboration with monk seal experts. Furthermore, scientific research and publication of the results of our work play a crucial role, obviously, in dissemination. and publishing the outcomes of project carried out by the research center helps share data, conservation strategy, it improve conservation strategies, and increase the visibility and credibility of the rescue center, both at national scale and at international scale. From a Natura 2000 perspective, this is essential because the network is not only about regulations, but is also about participation and collaboration, both with the citizens of our city, but also with other scientists. And so to conclude a bit, citizen involvement improve management because it increase awareness, promote sustainable behavior, and directly sometimes contribute to conservation action. And the experience of Cesta clearly show that when people are involved, conservation becomes more effective and also more long-lasting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. Your perspective is particularly valuable because it links conservation objective with concrete action, public participation, and direct engagement with the marine species and habitat. Thank you. The last question is for Aphrodite. Aphrodite, how can we improve international cooperation to raise awareness of marine conservation and Natura 2000?
I will take it a little bit back from what Linda said, and then I will move forward to the question because she made a very good point that we need to have more people, local people involved in the conservation. And I think it's time for everyone to start rethinking of how we approach conservation, nature conservation nowadays. We have to include inside our aspect and our approach also the societal challenges that we have as humans, because we are part of the environment. So we need to approach it a little bit different. Maybe we have to start rethinking a little bit of the way we move forward with everything. And moving on to the question, we have been doing in general an excellent job in transferring knowledge and replicate good examples. Life Amare was one of them. We had a lot of networking activities happening in many countries, and we got to share experiences and knowledge and issues that you also face in different countries and the solutions that you have found or you have not found, which is extremely good because everybody's on the same boat. So we share the same issues, and it's good to just feel that you're not alone. Though, in the end, what happens is that we perform these activities or actions, which are part of a project, and then the project is finished, and along with it, the effort that was put into it. So what Matthew said is that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we need to have persistence and consistency in order to improve our international cooperation and awareness on the marine conservation and on the Natura 2000 sites across the Mediterranean. And a way to do that, an approach to do that, is to use the regional structures that we have already, to reinforce them and maybe make them do a step forward and work more visibly at the public level, not just at the scientific or the conservation world. The Natura 2000 awareness, as we have said, everybody is still weak. The general awareness in Europe, everybody knows about nature protection. We know that. But we have little awareness concerning the Natura 2000 network. And that's why also the Commission have used tools like the Natura 2000 Award, specifically to raise public understanding, to raise awareness and the public understanding around the network. So a step could be that we share a Mediterranean communication campaign with a few simple messages. for example. In the Mediterranean, the methods could be translated into a basin-wide brand like Natura 2000 sites, MPAs, local benefits in plain language. And again, maybe the way forward is to think a little bit like a rebranding thing around the Natura 2000 network and learning from good tactics and practices that they're followed in different business models. Maybe that's a way. Another lever is to create cross-border pairing between marine sites instead of countries communicating separately, which is what we mainly do, to pair Natura 2000 sites that they face similar issues like anchoring, tourism, fisheries, invasive species, especially in the East Mediterranean, we have massive issues with invasive species, territorial conservation, and have them joint awareness weeks together, exchange staff, and this way the staff can build capacity around certain issues to produce common educational materials and share stories, because we are learning through storytelling. That's what human knowledge has moved on in thousands of years now. Storytelling is our core, and it's an ace in our pocket because we have the most compelling stories to say in the conservation world. And we don't do that. We don't communicate them properly. And it's something that holds us back in general. A scheme that has worked in many, especially in the terrestrial part, a lot is using ambassadors. Ambassadors that they can share the knowledge and the ideas that they have from peer to peer. And it's something that is also, we heard it here. It's easier for someone to listen to and understand and accept something that a person that shares the same challenges, the same barriers, the same roles, the same issues. If we are in it together, we tend more to listen to the person. So if I'm a farmer, I tend to listen more to a farmer that cultivates potatoes like me, and they face some issues in Spain and they dealt with it in a certain way. So I come along and they tell me about it, and I'm more open to accepting the knowledge that they're gonna offer to me. So we need to start looking at the different stakeholders as messengers, and we need to start treating them as messengers and not just targets, which in many cases is what happens. And just to close up, it's something that Linda mentioned a lot, and also Victor mentioned, a practical action that we could take is to make cooperation more visible through search monitoring or citizen science practices. So we could have, in many countries right now, we have apps, we have protocols in order for different groups to register the seagrass damage, invasive species. We have that, but we have them separately with one another. Maybe a way is to have common protocols and apps that they're used across countries, across the Mediterranean. That could be a way. Thank you.
Thank you, Aphrodite. But as you know, no final events is completed without one last question. I have chosen to leave this final question to Aphrodite. Listen to your presentation. I was thinking that this kind of work could almost be organized like a business plan. Clear goal, clear action, expected result, a long-term vision. Of course, conservation is different from business, but it still needs strategy, planning, and community. So the question is, what do you think still prevent us from working more often in this way of Natura 2000 sites management and conservation? Is it funding, governance, technical capacity, political priority, or something else?
To work as to following business principles in conservation, what is the main challenge? Like, what stops us from doing it? In a sense, I think it depends on the area that we talk about a lot and our perception, because so far, and we have made the business world a little bit evil, and it's understandable for everyone that works in the conservation sector. We hear business and we think of putting value in everything. So it's a buzzword for everyone, I think, all of us. We try not to touch it a lot, but we can use certain aspects of how businesses operate and bring it to what fits our needs in general. So, of course, it has to do a lot with the political will in many cases. And it has to do with all of the challenges that we have said so far. But I think in the end, if you don't have a very clear plan on how to proceed, you cannot do anything. You cannot succeed at anything because you don't have a goal, you don't have a vision.
Thank you, Aphrodite. Okay, thank you very much to all the panelists for this rich and stimulating contribution. I believe this discussion has clearly shown on one essential point: the future of the Rete Natura 2000 network depends on our capacity to connect science, management, policy, communication, participation. Conservation is not only a technical issue, it is also a cultural, institutional, and social challenge. And this is exactly why projects such as Life Amare matter. Now, I think that I don't know if Stella or Francesca, it's possible to watch the video, the short video of the project. Thank you.
Sand dunes, shaped by wind and waves. Boundless spaces, home to some of the largest creatures on Earth. Sea floors rich with life and wonder. The Mediterranean Sea is a mosaic of profoundly different habitats, all tied together by a fragile, invisible balance. It is also one of the most populated and exploited basins in the world. Intensive fishing, maritime traffic, pollution, coastal urbanization, and climate change are putting its most delicate relationships at risk. But perhaps the greatest threat is the invisibility of its natural value. Here, above and below the surface, lives a biodiversity found nowhere else on Earth. To protect this hidden heritage, Europe created an ambitious tool, the Natura 2000 network, the largest system of protected areas in the world. These are not areas where human activity is excluded, but places where people and nature can coexist in balance.
Ci siamo accorti che, diversi stakeholder, ma anche i turisti, anche i cittadini come noi, non conoscono i siti Rete Natura 2000. Perché? Perché in fondo c'è una comunicazione legata molto a dei codici e questo ne impedisce la conoscenza della bellezza che è insita nei siti, ma soprattutto anche delle specie e degli habitat che vengono conservati. Sono informazioni contenute in allegati tecnici, quindi volendo anche poco percepiti dal pubblico, poco percepiti dai cittadini, e con questo progetto quello che vogliamo realizzare è riuscire a far percepire la bellezza e la conservazione per far comprendere il loro ruolo fondamentale, cioè essere alleati della natura, essere alleati del sistema Rete Natura 2000.
grande lavoro che è nell'oggetto delle attività di Triton Research all'interno del progetto è proprio quello di trovare tutti gli strumenti per fare in maniera tale di creare quello che si chiama in gergo engagement, cioè qualcosa di più di una comunicazione semplice, ma il coinvolgimento delle persone nelle azioni concrete. E questo si attiva secondo diversi canali, perché i soggetti possono essere, come in questa spiaggia, i fruitori del mare e degli ambienti circostanti, ma possono essere anche gli appassionati di vela, piuttosto che chi fa snorkeling, ma piuttosto anche chi vive del mare, quindi i pescatori e tutti gli altri operatori che del mare, il mare lo vivono e vivono da quello che il mare dona. All'interno di queste azioni noi abbiamo pensato di fare una campagna velica. La campagna velica ha attraversato praticamente tutta l'Italia lo scorso anno e la stessa cosa è avvenuta quest'anno in Spagna. E è stato un momento attraverso il quale, solcando i mari, dimostrando che cosa c'è di meraviglioso nelle nostre acque, ma anche nella parte costiera, abbiamo raccontato le bellezze della Rete Natura 2000.
Siamo nell'isolotto di Lisca Bianca, nell'arcipelago delle Eolie, ma specificatamente in un gruppo di isolette che sono tutte designate come area Natura 2000 per le incredibili e specifiche piante e animali che vivono solo qui e in nessun'altra parte del mondo. Ad esempio abbiamo qui il garofanino delle Eolie, che adesso è in fioritura, e proprio qui la camomilla delle Eolie, che addirittura non si trova neanche su Panarea, si può trovare solo su questa piccolissima isola. Dobbiamo essere consapevoli che se le perdiamo qui, in questi ambienti, le perdiamo in tutto il mondo, perché solo qui sono presenti.
Le llamamos planeta Tierra, pero en realidad le deberíamos de llamar planeta Océano, porque ocupa más del 70% de la superficie global. Regula el clima, nos aporta alimentos y medicinas, pero también está sufriendo amenazas muy importantes. Ante ellas, los espacios marinos protegidos juegan un papel fundamental, y España ha avanzado en los últimos años de proteger menos del 1% de su superficie marina a más del 21% actual, protegiendo hábitats tan importantes como las praderas de Posidonia o los arrecifes de coral, y especies tan emblemáticas como la tortuga boba o la nacra. Todo ello basado en la ciencia y en la participación. Iniciativas como esta o muchas otras que podamos diseñar entre todos son fundamentales para la conservación de nuestro océano y, por lo tanto, para garantizar nuestro bienestar y el de las generaciones futuras.
Noi possiamo fare tanto per la biodiversità. A volte le persone pensano che la tutela della biodiversità sia affidata agli scienziati, sia affidata ad altre persone perché non si è esperti. No, non è vero. In realtà tutti noi, anche con il nostro comportamento di tutti i giorni, noi possiamo davvero fare la differenza, ci credo totalmente.
With the financial contribution of LIFE program of European Union.
Wow, cioè l'effetto wow. Okay. We are now approaching to conclusion of these events. Before closing, I would like once again to thank all speakers, participants, partners, and colleagues who made these final events possible and who contributed through the project with commitment, professionalism, and passion. Thank you. And now I'm concluding our meeting. I'm pleased to give floor to Lorenzo Viviani. Lorenzo, are you? Lorenzo? Yes, okay. Hi Lorenzo.
Grazie Maria.
Lorenzo, a te le conclusioni di questo evento, per noi importantissimo, come hai potuto vedere, strappa lacrime alla fine con il video. A te la parola Lorenzo, grazie.
Però insomma erano tutte immagini bellissime. E grazie, e anch'io mi unisco ai tuoi ringraziamenti. Mi scuso perché ho ascoltato in maniera alterna, diciamo, perché poi purtroppo avevo proprio delle problematiche con la mia area marina protetta, con l'area marina protetta delle Cinque Terre, perché è primavera, la stagione impellente e proprio noi dobbiamo essere anche un po' come istituzioni a dare il buon esempio di una buona amministrazione, di rispondere alle esigenze sia naturalmente in primis quelle ambientali, ma anche che arrivano dagli stakeholder del territorio e dalle persone che vivono e valorizzano il territorio, in questo caso delle Cinque Terre. Quindi mi perdonate se non ho potuto ascoltarvi tutti con attenzione, anche se devo dire la verità, la parte finale della tavola rotonda è stata forse quella più che ci ha lasciato veramente dei punti salienti, anche delle materie di riflessione che arrivano poi da ricercatori, persone che lavorano con l'ambiente. Sono d'accordo con voi, quindi naturalmente parto con i ringraziamenti per Federparchi e tutti i relatori e tutti quelli che hanno portato avanti questa progettazione, che io dico sempre, quando si arriva alla fine vuol dire che si inizia a lavorare e si mette a sistema quello che si è fatto precedentemente, quindi è un altro inizio di lavoro per noi e con i risultati che porta questa progettazione, che ho preso in coda come presidente del Parco Nazionale delle Cinque Terre, ma che ritengo fondamentale proprio nel ruolo che hanno le aree protette in generale, che sia il Parco Nazionale Terrestre, le aree marine protette, siti di Natura 2000. Il problema grande che abbiamo con le aree protette, secondo me, è anche il passaggio culturale che deve esserci e che non sono solo aree di conservazione, quindi aree dove noi proteggiamo quell'ecosistema, proteggiamo quella biocenosi, magari particolare, ed è giusto quindi difenderla rispetto magari a un posto oltre i confini del parco, oltre i confini dell'area marina protetta. Ma proprio perché quell'area è fortunata, dobbiamo utilizzarla, uso questa brutta parola perché è brutto dire utilizzare, ma dobbiamo mettere a sistema quest'area per dare e comunicare cosa vuol dire un'area protetta, insegnare a chi ci viene a visitare. Io vengo da un posto naturalmente con una pressione turistica importante, insegnare come parco nazionale, come area marina protetta, come si lavora, com'è la fruizione turistica in un sito e come può essere, perché dobbiamo essere un esempio per l'esterno. Io ho sempre questa, nel mio passato, diciamo, da biologo marino e però anche da pescatore professionista, pescatore di acciughe, porto sempre l'esempio e dire perché un sito fuori da un'area protetta deve essere più sfortunato. All'interno del porto commerciale di La Spezia, sul fondale del porto di La Spezia, a volte abbiamo delle comunità bentoniche meravigliose. Perché devono essere più sfortunate rispetto a Punta Mesco, al Punta del Monte Nero, che sono dentro al sito, all'area marina protetta delle Cinque Terre? Ecco, non devono essere più sfortunate. E dobbiamo arrivare anche lì a proteggere. E per arrivare bisogna insegnare. Quindi io penso alle aree protette come delle grandi scuole, quindi devono avere l'importanza di questo progetto nella comunicazione e nella messa in rete delle aree protette, proprio perché dobbiamo comunicare, perché chi ci viene a visitare, che sia un bambino, i bambini sono il futuro, perché quello che insegna un bambino è che lasci impresso l'emozione che può avere un bambino nell'imparare una buona pratica ambientale, o come si pesca in maniera sostenibile, o come si lavora, in questo caso come si rapporta con la fauna selvatica, che sia marina o terrestre. è fondamentale, perché se lasciamo l'emozione, che è quella che si porterà avanti per tutta la vita, è come quando tu insegni a un bambino a non buttare la carta per terra. Io sono di quelli 43 anni che vanno in giro con le tasche stracolmi di rifiuti, di cartacee, perché ho proprio la ripulsione, come tutti voi penso, a lasciare una carta per terra, ma sono quelle piccole semi che se non lasciamo in un momento giusto della persona, purtroppo stentano poi a essere permeabili, a essere permeabili in un secondo momento. Quindi abbiamo questo grande compito di comunicare ai giovani, anche meno giovani, cosa vuol dire area protetta, cosa vuol dire lavorare, vivere all'interno delle aree protette. Io vengo da un'area protetta, l'avete visto dalle immagini, bellissime, complimenti, dove c'erano anche dei pescatori amici di Monterosso, sullo sfondo, dove l'antropizzazione è enorme, perché noi siamo un territorio, un parco che è legato all'essere umano, al lavoro dell'essere umano, soprattutto per la parte terrestre, che è legata ai terrazzamenti e ai muri a secco. Cerco di essere telegrafico perché mi sono già allungato troppo, però ecco, insegnare come aree protette anche l'equilibrio fra uomo e natura, secondo me è la grande sfida che potremo portare avanti, e che come aree protette abbiamo il dovere di insegnare e di gestire in maniera efficace per dare il buon esempio. La gestione con le attività di pesca, anche, fatemi dire, non nella banalizzazione del messaggio, fra virgolette, perdonatemi, ambientalista, che nel tempo è sempre stato molto generico, e invece bisogna arrivare un po' più a fondo. Con le nozioni scientifiche, nel passato dipingevamo in maniera unilaterale, quasi in un solo modo, la figura del pescatore professionista. Fortunatamente, in maniera negativa, fortunatamente adesso capiamo che si può gestire il mondo della pesca, che il mondo della pesca, se viene preso in una certa maniera, diventa quasi sentinella, perché fa monitoraggio, no? E quindi, essendo sempre in mare, il biologo marino in mare purtroppo non ci va così spesso, perché anche tutta l'attività di laboratorio, e siamo legati anche ai finanziamenti che mandano avanti la ricerca. Il pescatore è una persona che può testimoniare come i nostri ecosistemi marini cambiano di giorno in giorno se viene fidelizzato con l'attività scientifica, con l'attività di un parco nazionale, di un'area marina protetta. Anche in virtù dei cambiamenti climatici, il Mediterraneo, dove si è svolta questa progettazione, è un hotspot a livello mondiale dei cambiamenti climatici, è da noi nel Mediterraneo succede, vedremo quello che succede nel resto del mondo nei prossimi 20-30 anni in maniera anticipata, quindi ci dà anche la possibilità di progettare come quello che possiamo fare, sia per mitigare, sia per diciamo riuscire a dare delle risposte a tutto questo, educare naturalmente l'essere umano che deve andare nella giusta direzione. Penso ad esempio all'attività, una cosa che sta andando avanti nella vicina alla Spezia, che abbiamo qua, la molluschicoltura, che può essere ad esempio una pratica da spronare col carbon sink, quindi la sottrazione di carbonio. Sono tutti elementi che secondo me vanno messi a sistema. Conoscenza, perché abbiamo questo grande scopo, secondo me, come aree protette, di essere una grande scuola per chi ci viene a visitare. Quindi non possiamo neanche fallire nella gestione. Poi mi ricollego ai finanziamenti, al fatto che comunque le aree devono essere, soffrono naturalmente di una atavica problematica, aree protette anche nel nostro paese. Bisogna riuscire a sanare, perché il brutto esempio che possiamo dare come area protetta non è solamente un brutto esempio di cattiva gestione, ma può minare, diciamo, anche l'insegnamento che dobbiamo dare a chi ci viene a visitare. Io concludo ringraziando veramente tutti, perché è stata anche una giornata di riflessione che mi ha dato degli spunti anche per il mio lavoro quotidiano nel Parco Nazionale delle Cinque Terre. Quindi arrivederci, grazie Maria veramente, insomma complimenti a tutti voi, complimenti a tutti i ricercatori e a tutte le attività che avete fatto in questa progettazione. Grazie.
Grazie Lorenzo. Thank you very much, Lorenzo. And thank you once again to everyone to join us today. With this, we conclude the final events and the project of Life Amar. Victor, Diego, Stella, Georgia, if you want, you can add other words. Or, I don't know. Thank you for your attention and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.